Welcome to the Wessex Gallery at the Salisbury Museum. In this film I want to take a close look at one of my favourite burials on display here, the Swallowcliffe Princess that you can see just behind me. She was an Anglo-Saxon lady who was buried around 700 AD and she was of huge importance. She was excavated in 1966 from a Bronze Age burial mound, and that in itself is interesting because that was an ancient monument when she died. It probably dated back to about 2000 BC. So when she was buried, it was already 2,700 years old. It was an ancient monument in the landscape, and this was perhaps a way that she wanted to show as an Anglo-Saxon her connections with the heritage and the history of the area. The other reason we know that she was important was because of all the finds that the burial contained. There's an amazing collection of artefacts. She was also found on the remains of a wooden bed, an ashwood bed with iron fittings. This bed may have been used to display her body before she was buried, but it marks her out again as someone significant. This is a very, very rare form of burial in the Anglo-Saxon period. Now what I'd like to do is take a really close look at some of the artefacts that she was found with, but in order to do that we have to open the case. So not only is the Swallowcliffe Princess one of the most important burials on display in the Wessex Gallery, but the case that she's placed in is also a real work of art. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to show this to you, is to show how it opens. I absolutely love it. It always amazes me every time we do it. But anyway, let's go in and have a look at some of the objects on display. The first thing you'll notice is that there isn't much of the skeleton here. A few bits and pieces were found, but in the middle here there's a void, there's a gap, where there was no burial found, and that's because this was robbed. The excavation of it was done in 1966, but somebody had been there before, maybe a group of people had been there before, and dug down through the centre of the mound, looking perhaps for the Bronze Age burial and all the treasure that may have contained. But we were lucky because although they did go through and take out part of the skeleton, they missed out on all of these Anglo-Saxon finds that she was placed with. Now let's talk about some of those. So over in the far corner there we have the remains of a bucket. It's got bronze decorative fittings around the top and iron hoops holding it together, and also an iron handle. Over by the thigh here is a group of artefacts that were found in the remains of a casket. And we know the casket was made of maple because some of the fittings still had some of the wood attached. But the contents included this silver spoon that you can see here, a bone comb over towards the back here, and in between this bronze sprinkler. This was an important high status object that was used to contain scented water, basically to spray on the floor to freshen up your house. Moving down we have some of the remains of the bed itself. These are iron fittings from the bed. And we know the bed was made of ashwood because as iron rusts, it mineralises organic material that's sitting next to it. So these fittings came off the bed, and as it rusted, some of the actual wood itself has been incorporated into the rust. And we can analyse that to understand what species of wood was used. Further down, we have the remains of another bucket, some iron fittings off of the bucket, and also the remains of an iron pan or a skillet. But now coming closer to us, on the nearer side, we have these two glass cups, these palm cups. One has been restored, this one here, but this one here is complete. It is almost as good as the day it was made. And you know, when I look at this, I think, God, I could just pick that up, I could use it. But it's 1,300 years old. And then finally, we have over here one of my favourite objects, not only in this burial, but also in the Wessex Gallery, in fact in the entire museum. It's a roundel. It's decorated to appear like a flower. And it's made out of small pieces of gold and silver foil. They have repoussé decoration. It's where the decoration's been hammered from behind. I think there are 19 pieces of gold and silver making up this decorative feature that would have sat on a leather satchel, and in fact some of the fittings from the satchel have also survived. And this may have been a bag that was used to contain a book. It could have been a religious book, for example, and some people think these roundels, these satchel mounts, may have some religious connotations. But the fact is, when you look at this burial, this person probably wasn't a Christian. They were almost certainly a pagan, because they've been buried with a huge array of artefacts that were there to perhaps help them on their journey into the afterlife. And they mark her out as someone of huge importance.